and see. Okay, we're live. What the heck just happened?
What's up, y'all?
I know, right? Two cameras. Okay, let me go back to the little video.
You want to do a test? I don't. Are you sure we're
This is
live?
tape 1 of 3.
Um, it says it's live on Rumble. Let's see
I'm
if
checking
Rumble
right
says.
now.
Yeah,
I'll let you
let's
know
see if
in one
Rumble says
second.
we're live. Okay, guys, we're just checking to see if this Rumble live is really rumbling.
It looks like it's rumbling, Layla.
Yeah. Okay, good. It's
Let
good.
me test it.
Okay, thank God. Rumble is so. I'm like, okay. All right, we're back here. Okay, so God willing, we'll get through this. So let's get back into it. This is going to be worth it. I promise. This, literally, this was the most hilarious. Like last time, we didn't watch very much, or it took forever to get through because it was so good. It was so hilarious. Like each snippet, we had to stop and be like, oh my God, I can't believe they actually said this. I can't believe they actually thought this. Like, how is this possible? So let's listen to the beginning. I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger. Let's listen to the beginning of the first video, and if you want to go back and listen to the live, I need to post the first one on Rumble. I don't think I posted it on Rumble.
Okay.
Yeah. So so what did you think of the first one though, before we start playing the intro to it, so we can.
Eerie's not the right word. It's beyond eerie. It's undeniably evidence of a smoking gun of these conspiracies that we're always called theorists for. And man, bar after bar after bar, like we said last time, like every word that comes out of this guy's mouth, he's a doctor that was getting a lecture from his like protege or whatever, the main doctor in Pittsburgh, which Pittsburgh is like one of the best medical places in the world. And this just fell into my lap. Not many people have heard it, but tell me it doesn't sum up everything and then some that we're seeing in the world right now.
Yeah, I know this is gonna be creepy because we wanted to take a break from the like doomsday, the bombing, and all that stuff, and like just take a break, just get into something good. Okay, so let's. Okay, so this is gonna be an old tape. It's just the tape. It's gonna be old, and it's like they're explaining and they're giving context. So let's get into it.
Tapes on the new.
Oh, and let's just say there's 4 tapes, by the way. There's 4 tapes. 4 tapes to this. So this is a lot. And we actually need to just get through all 4 tapes so that people can get it.
Good luck getting that from us.
This
It's
is
going to
tape
take forever,
1
but it'll be
of
worth
3
it.
tapes on the New Order of Barbarians, referred to on these tapes as simply the New World System. Tapes 1 and 2 are reminiscence by Dr. Lawrence Dunnigan of a speech given on March 20th, 1969 by an insider of the order, whose names and credentials are given in the interview with Dr. Dunnigan on tape 3. The moderator for these tapes is Randy Engel, National Director, U.S. Coalition for Life.
There has been much written and much said by some people who have looked at all the changes that have occurred in American society in the past 20 years or so, and who have looked then retrospectively to earlier history of the United States and indeed of the world, and come to the conclusion that there is a conspiracy of sorts which influences, indeed controls, major historical events not only in the United States but around the world. This conspiratorial interpretation of history is based on people making observations from the outside, gathering evidence, and coming to the conclusion that from the outside they see a conspiracy. Their evidence and conclusion are based on evidence gathered in retrospect, period. I want to now describe what I heard from a speaker in 1969 which in several weeks will now be 20 years ago. The speaker did not speak.
Okay, so this is 20 years after 1969. So this is a long time. This is a
20
long
years
time.
later, because he felt obligated to the guy that told him this to not say anything until he died. And then when the guy died in 88 or whenever, he started telling about it.
That makes sense.
And
Makes sense.
It's a medical doctor that's repeating the alleged lecture he got from a renowned medical doctor that was this is in University of Pittsburgh, which again is one of the best medicals in the world. And if I'm not mistaken, he's going to get into detailing the guy's credentials that he hears this lecture from. And he was one of the heads of Planned Parenthood, if I'm not mistaken. Just saying. Seriously? Layla, I think the sound's out. Or is that... Folks, do you hear Layla?
Sorry, I had to check something. Okay, yeah, let's get back into this.
In terms of retrospect, but rather predicting changes that would be brought about in the future. The speaker was not looking from the outside in, thinking that he saw conspiracy. Rather, he was on the inside, admitting that indeed there was an organized power, force, group of men who wielded enough influence to determine major events involving countries around the world. And he predicted, or rather expounded on changes that were planned for the remainder of this century. As you listen, if you can recall the situation, at least in the United States in 1969 and the few years thereafter, and then recall the kinds of changes which have occurred between then and now, almost 20 years later.
Now,
I believe you'll be impressed with the degree to which the things that were planned to be brought about have already been accomplished. Some of the things that were discussed were not intended to be accomplished yet by 1988, but are intended to be accomplished before the end of this century. There is a timetable, and it was during this session that some of the elements of the timetable were brought out. Anyone who recalls early in the days of the Kennedy presidency, the Kennedy campaign, when he spoke of progress in the decade of the 60s, that was kind of a cliche in those days, the decade of the 60s. Well, by 1969, our speaker was talking about the decade of the 70s, the decade of the 80s, and the decade of the 90s. So that I think that terminology, that way of looking at things and expressing things, probably all comes from the same source. Prior to that time, I don't remember anybody saying the decade of the 40s and the decade of the 50s. So I think this overall plan and timetable had taken importance, that if he did, most of the people would be names that were recognized century, so that we or they would enter the 21st century with a flying start.
Okay, so that's just a little precursor to just get started. I mean, he goes on. I mean, this is just like some guy, you know?
just wait. It's a little dry. It's a little dry.
It's
He's
just
an
some
old
guy.
man, but it picks up fast.
Yeah. So we're going to fast forward 10
I
minutes.
began to understand why he might have had some concern about not having it widely known what was said, although this was a fairly public forum where he was speaking. Remarks were delivered, but nonetheless he asked that no notes be taken, no tape recorder be used, suggesting there might be some personal danger to himself if these revelations were widely publicized.
Yeah. So
Again, as the remarks began to unfold and some of the rather outrageous things that were said at that time, they certainly seemed outrageous, I made it a point to try to remember as much of what he said as I could, and during the subsequent weeks and months and years to connect my recollections to simple events around me, both to aid my memory for the future in case I wanted to do what I'm doing now, record this, and also to try to maintain a perspective on what would be developing if indeed it followed the predicted pattern, which it has. At this point, so that I don't forget to include it later, I'll just include some statements that were made from time to time throughout the presentation. Drug addiction, which we'll get into shortly. He was very active with population control groups, the population control movement.
This recording
and population control
like
was really the entry point into specifics following the introduction. He said the population is growing too fast. Numbers of people living at any one time on the planet must be limited, or we will run out of space to live. We will outgrow our food supply, and we will overpollute the world with our waste. People won't be allowed to have babies just because they want to or because they are careless. Most families would be limited to 2. Some people would be allowed only 1, and the outstanding person or persons might be selected and allowed to have 3. But most people would allow to have only 2 babies. That's because the zero population growth is 2.1 children per completed family, so something like every 10th family might be allowed the privilege of the 3rd baby.
Education. Can we pause for 1 second?
Yeah, what's that?
They've been so effective that they haven't even had to implement the mandatory no 2 kids policy. They've just convinced everybody. How many people do you know that have like more than 3 kids?
I know, it's not a lot.
3 is even kind of rare these days.
Yeah.
So they didn't even have to mandate it.
Yeah, they didn't have to do it. They made it. That's the thing. They go from the outside in. Like, we're so used to like forcing people to do things, and putting a law there or doing this, like actually doing some external control force when the social engineers go inside out. Basically, instead they go inside out. The governments and everything go outside in, and the social engineers go inside out, where they create, they go inside out and outside in, because they create the environment to produce the results, and then they do the like mental training from the inside to produce those results. So they're hitting both fronts, and that's really critical. And most people think, oh, you just force somebody to do something. Most people don't want to be told what to do.
Exactly, and it's not going to result in a productive slave if you do that. Like a slave that realizes it's a slave is not a worthwhile investment, because it's always going to try to run away, stab you in the back, do subpar work, cause resurrections. They can't know that. They figured it out a long time ago. It's called Babylonian slave driving technique. That they figured out, like, we can't, these aren't worthwhile investments when they know that they're a slave. What do? What if we trick them into thinking they're free? And what if, better yet, we trick them into thinking that we're not the slave masters, we're their advocates, their allies. Not only will they do good work and be proud and uphold the slave farm, they'll stop resurrections from occurring on our behalf.
Yeah, that's true.
And
they'll demonize.
It would lead to more pregnancies in children. How these people operate. That was before the school-based clinic programs got started. Many cities in the United States by this time have already set up school-based clinics, which are primarily contraception, birth control.
Yeah, so he's talking about how they're actually getting it.
The idea then is that the connection between sex and contraception introduced and reinforced.
Yeah.
That only reflected my lack of understanding of how these people operate. That was before the school-based clinic programs got started. many cities in the United States by this time have already set up school-based clinics, which are primarily contraception, birth control, population control clinics. The idea then is that the connection between sex and contraception introduced and reinforced in school would carry over into marriage. Indeed, if young people, when they matured, decided to get married, marriage itself would be diminished in importance.
That didn't happen.
He indicated some recognition that most people probably would want to be married, but that this certainly would not be any longer considered to be necessary for sexual activity. No surprise then that the next item was abortion, and this now back in 1969, 4 years before Roe v. Wade. He said abortion will no longer be a crime. Abortion will be accepted as normal.
Wow, so 4 years before, he was letting everybody know abortion wouldn't be a crime anymore. So he's just mainly talking about right now the whole population control slant, but he goes into a lot of other stuff.
And would be paid for by tax.
He said, pay attention to this, folks, because they basically they upside down everything about sexuality. They want to make it so that sexuality isn't intrinsically attached to the idea of procreation, creating a baby. So they want to promote free, like consequence-free, do what you want kind of sex, and also at the same time promote things like abortion and contraceptives and all that dissociate the person from procreation when they're having sex.
Yeah.
Pretty
for people who could not pay for their own abortions. Contraceptives would be made available by tax money so that nobody would have to do without contraceptives. If school sex programs would lead to more pregnancies in children.
Notice how he calls it school sex programs.
He just said it'll lead to more pregnancies in children. I forgot about this part. This gets so crazy.
This is creepy.
If school sex programs would lead to more pregnancies in children, that was really seen as no problem. Parents who think they are opposed to abortion on moral or religious grounds will change their minds when it is their own child who is pregnant. So this will help overcome opposition to abortion. Before long, only a few diehards will still refuse to see abortion as acceptable, and they won't matter anymore.
I love how, oh my God, this is how you know these are social engineers. They're like, and they won't matter anymore. Like,
they're right.
It's not about, oh, somebody, like everybody's not agreeing. It's like, those people don't even matter. Like, you don't care. At a certain point, it's just like they don't matter anymore. But most of us are always like, oh, what do they think? Oh my God, what do they think about us? It's like,
how can we use these pawns to our best ends? Is how they look at people.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. It's like once we'll let the young girls get pregnant, so that way the parents that would be dug in against abortion and whatnot will come around to it, and then their peers, the girls' peers and whatnot, their parents will see that it's not so bad. It's gonna spiderweb. It's brilliant. Got to give them credit.
It is brilliant. It's really, really brilliant.
Homosexuality also was to be encouraged.
Oh wait, did he just say?
Oh my God, that's a bar.
Parents who think they are opposed to abortion on moral or religious will be given permission to be homosexuals. That's the way it was stated. They won't have to hide it. And elderly people will be encouraged to continue to have active sex lives into their very old ages as long as they can.
I don't understand.
Everyone will be given permission to have sex to enjoy however they want. Anything goes. This is the way it was put. And I remember
Martha Stewart's
thinking
on the cover of freaking
how
Sports
arrogant
Illustrated now.
What?
Martha Stewart's on the cover of Sports Illustrated, like pretty much almost naked, to his point.
Oh my God, I'm gonna pull that up.
This individual or whoever he represents to feel that they can give or withhold permission for people to do things. But that was the terminology that was used. In this regard, clothing was mentioned. Clothing styles would be made more stimulating and provocative. Recall back in 1969 was the time of the the miniskirt, when those miniskirts were very, very high and very revealing. He said it's not just the amount of skin that is exposed that makes clothing sexually seductive, but other more subtle things are often more suggestive.
This is disturbing.
Things like movement and the cut of clothing and the kind of fabric, the positioning of accessories on the clothing. If a woman has an attractive body, why should she not show it?
You didn't tell me you were pulling that up. Morning, brother.
There's was not detail on what was meant by provocative clothing, but since that time, if you watch the changes in clothing styles, blue jeans are cut in a way that they're much more tight-fitting through the crotch. They form wrinkles. Wrinkles essentially are arrows, lines which direct one's vision to certain anatomic areas. And this was around the time of the burn your bra activity. He indicated that a lot of women should not go without a bra. They need a bra to be attractive. So instead of banning bras and burning them, bras would come back, but they would be thinner and softer, allowing more natural movement. And it was not specifically stated, but certainly a very thin bra is much more revealing of the nipple and what else is underneath than the heavier bras that were in style up to that time. Technology. Earlier he said sex and reproduction would be separated. You would have sex without reproduction, and then technology was reproduction without sex. This would be done in the laboratory. Indicated already much research was underway about making babies in the laboratory. There was some elaboration on that, but I don't remember the details, how much of that technology has come to my attention since that time.
Gen Z fashion, guys.
Oh my God.
Isn't it amazing? Isn't it great? And then
my daughter would be grounded until that shit literally rotted off of her body before she was ever allowed out again. If I saw her wearing
notice their bodies. Look at this one. Dominican, like, what is this? And then this one, just gross. It's like very trafficked. I call it trafficked aesthetic. It's the trafficked aesthetic. Like, does she not look like she's being trafficked?
It reminds me of this chick Dilla I know.
Dilla? Doa. Oh, okay. No, but it's a very trafficked aesthetic. And he's saying that the clothes will become more sexual. I mean, these are an example of revealing, but just overall, the aesthetic has increased more and more and more. And now we're here. And, yeah, sex does not... What are the abortion people always scream about? You know, sex does not equal...
reproduction or whatever.
Yeah,
that's literally like been put in their brain. And the scary part, he said, reproduction or reproduction without sex, technology to reproduce.
Yes,
that's fucking terrifying. Especially because again, this is a medical doctor.
Exactly.
Head of Planned Parenthood.
I don't remember in a way that I can distinguish what was said from what I subsequently have just learned as general medical information. Families would be limited in size. We already alluded to not being allowed more than 2 children. Divorce would be made easier and more prevalent. Most people who marry...
No fault. Just do what you want. No fault.
Wow.
And in this way, you are dependent and virtually required to have insurance.
Oh, wait. Oops.
Boom, the insurance.
About making babies in the laboratories. And the extended family would be smaller and more remote. Travel would be easier, less expensive for a while, so that people who did have to...
He's so shady. He's like, it will be easier and less expensive for a while.
Yeah, he throws that in real sly.
He throws it in.
Travel would feel that they could get back to their families Not that they were abruptly being made remote from their families. But one of the net effects of easier divorce laws, combined with the promotion of travel and transferring families from one city to another, was to create instability in the families. If both husband and wife are working and one partner gets transferred, the other one may not be easily transferred. So one either gives up his or her job and stays behind while the other leaves, or else gives up the job and risks not finding employment in the new location. Rather diabolical approach to this whole thing.
No shit.
Euthanasia, you mentioned several of these. I don't remember them all. Here are a few. The use of very pale printing ink on forms that people necessary to fill out, so that older people wouldn't be able to read the pale ink as easily and would need to go to younger people for help.
Bro, my grandmother and whatnot always had to ask me, and my dad even has to ask me to read things sometimes nowadays. Like, they do make it really small. It's funny that it's that small.
Yeah, and low contrast.
High-speed traffic lanes, traffic patterns that would...
Oh, okay. So he's explaining how they break down the self-esteem and the admiration of older people, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
The will to live.
With their slower reflexes would have trouble dealing with, and thus tend to lose some of their independence. Big item which was elaborated at some length was the cost of medical care would be made burdensomely high. Medical care would be connected very closely with one's work, but also would be made very, very high in cost, so that it would simply be unavailable to people beyond a certain time. And unless they had a remarkably rich supporting family, they would just have to do it without care. And the idea was that if everybody sees enough what a burden it is on the young to try to maintain the old people, then the young would become agreeable to helping mom and dad along the way, provided that this was done humanely and with dignity. And then the example was there could be like a nice farewell party, a real celebration. Mom and dad had done a good job. And then after the party's over, take the demise pill. The next topic is medicine. There would be profound changes in the practice of medicine. Overall, medicine would be much more tightly controlled. The observation was made, Congress is not going to go along with national health insurance that in 1969 he said is now abundantly evident, but it's not necessary. We have other ways to control health care. These will come about more gradually, but all health care delivery would come under tight control.
Yep.
Medical care would be closely connected to work. If you don't work or can't work, you won't have access to medical care. The days of hospitals giving away free care would gradually wind down until that was virtually non-existent.
Yeah.
Costs would be forced up so that people won't be able to afford to go without insurance. People pay. You pay for it, you're entitled to it. It was only subsequently that I began to realize...
Because this is the thing, all of this stuff, it wasn't like this before.
Right. That's what's so crazy when you hear him describing all this. This was only in my lifetime, because he's doing this in 88. I was born in 87. Literally within my lifetime, totally different world.
Yeah.
Insurance. And if you don't have insurance and you pay directly, the cost of your care is enormous. The insurance company, however, paying for your care does not pay that same amount. If you are charged, say, $600 for the use of an operating room, the insurance company does not pay $600 on your part. They pay $300 or $400. And that differential in billing has the desired effect. It enables the insurance company to pay for that which you could never pay for.
Yep.
They get a discount that's unavailable to you, when you see your bill, you're grateful that the insurance company can do that, and in this way you are dependent and virtually required to have insurance. The whole billing is fraudulent. Anyhow, continuing on now.
Again, it's a medical doctor.
Yeah.
Access to hospitals would be tightly controlled. Identification will be needed to get into the building.
Well, we saw that happen. I mean, it's still happening right now. You still need an ID to get into a hospital. Like,
Definitely.
you need IDs everywhere. And I love he's saying all these things because these things did not happen. It wasn't like this. So for him, this was weird. It was bizarre. And so he would see it, new things popping up and changing, and society changing, and then he says, "Oh, I remember he said this. I remember he said that."
Yes. And remember, he said that they were told don't take any notes or recordings.
Yeah.
And isn't that a very odd thing to make them do if they're students at a lecture?
I know.
Security in and around hospitals.
This must be the patriarchy I know you're part of.
Oh, yeah. Proud patriarch right here.
Hospitals would be established and gradually increased so that nobody without identification could get in or move around inside the building. Theft of hospital equipment, things like typewriters and microscopes and so forth, would be allowed, and exaggerated. Reports of it would be exaggerated, so that this would be the excuse needed to establish the need for strict security until people got used to it. And anybody moving about in a hospital would be required to wear an identification badge with a photograph and telling...
So it's like he's just prattling this on, and you're thinking in your head, like, why is he even talking about this? Like, this is just normal. But again, this is not normal.
Exactly. Dude, it's crazy to hear how different the world was.
I know. You weren't bagged and tagged like some, like, game animal. Like...
Well, now they need to know everybody that's in there, and they needed to make sure they knew everybody was in there when they were going to do the con that was the ID.
Yeah, the C-19.
Can't have people coming in here playing around.
Why he was there, employee or lab technician or visitor or whatever. And this is to be brought in gradually, getting everybody used to the idea of identifying themselves.
Gradually.
Until it was just accepted. This need for ID to move about would start in small ways, hospitals, some businesses, but gradually expand to include everybody in all places. It was observed that hospitals can be used to confine people for the treatment of criminals. This did not mean necessarily medical treatment. At that time, I did not know the word psycho prison, as in the Soviet Union, but without trying to recall all the details, basically he was describing the use of hospitals both for treating the sick and for confinement of criminals for reasons other than the medical well-being of the criminal. Definition of criminal was not given. The image of the doctor would change. No longer would he be seen as an individual professional in service to individual patients, but the doctor would be gradually recognized as a highly skilled technician, and his job would change. The job is to include things like executions by lethal injection.
Wow.
That's not happening.
Wow.
That's not happening. Can you imagine sitting somewhere and just hearing somebody talk like this and just like...
No. Especially saying it so certainly, like... And then as it starts to come about, the more years that go by, one more thing after another starts to... He ends up telling a story about when he takes his kid to a movie and all the gore and whatnot that he was really surprised by and shocked. He didn't want his young boy to see that. But it's just, there's so much crazy stuff.
The image of the doctor as being a powerful, independent person would have to be changed.
Yeah.
And he went on to say, doctors that make entirely too much money. They should advertise like any other product. Lawyers would be advertising too. Keep in mind, this was an audience of doctors being addressed by a doctor, And it was interesting that he would make some rather insulting statements to his audience without...
Oh, really? Insulting? Huh?
If you can't tell, he's a piece of shit, bro.
Literally. He does not respect. Like, that's the thing. Social engineers, in order to, like, carry out their, like, horrible agendas, they have to have a really healthy level of disdain and detachment from humanity. Like, you're not going to go around being like, oh, I feel for these people. You're going to go around thinking, okay, these people are animals and they deserve this.
Yes, because they let me get away with it. I'm better than them, and they deserve it. Exactly. And if I don't do it to them, then I'm no better than them, and somebody has the right and should do it to me. Mm-hmm. That's how they look at it.
Antagonizing us. The solo practitioner would become a thing of the past. A few diehards might try to hold out, but most doctors would be employed by an institution of one kind or another. Group practice would be encouraged, corporations would be encouraged, and then once the corporate image of medical care, as this gradually became more and more acceptable, doctors would more and more become employees rather than independent contractors. And along with that, of course, unstated but necessary, is the employee serves his employer, not his patient.
Oh my God, somebody just called you a person of color.
I see you both are people of color. You know what? That's crazy to hear, but it's not the first time I've heard that in my life, believe it or not, for some reason.
Funny.
I don't know what it means.
Yeah.
If you can't tell, I'm white.
You're definitely not a person of color.
So that's, and we've already seen quite a lot of that in the last 20 years, and apparently more on the horizon. The term HMO was not used at that time, but as you look at HMOs, you see this is the way that medical care is being taken over since the national health insurance approach did not get through the Congress. A few diehard doctors may try to make a go of it remaining in solo practice, remaining independent, which parenthetically is me.
But they'll die off.
But they would suffer great loss of income. They'd be able to scrape by maybe, but never really live comfortably as those who were willing to become employees of the system. Ultimately, there would be no room at all for the solo practitioner after the system is entrenched.
Yeah, so they basically, he was talking about how they were telling them that you're going to become part of the entity. You're not going to be able to be independent and do what you want and practice just freely and tell people what you want freely, like, and actually help people. You're going to be part of a corporate structure, centralized control.
And do what you're told for the profit of the corporation.
Exactly.
You could try to fight the tide, but you're going to drown in that shit. You could just come with us and still be a prestigious doctor or not.
Mm-hmm.
Next heading to talk about is health and disease. He said there would be new diseases to appear, which had not ever been seen before, would be very difficult to diagnose and be untreatable, at least for a long time. No elaboration was made on this, but I remember not long after hearing this presentation, when I had a puzzling diagnosis to make, I would be wondering, is this what he was talking about? Is this a case of what he was talking about?
Can you imagine going around, like, constantly being paranoid, trying to figure out, oh, is this what he was talking about? Is this what he was talking about? Just, like, unhinged.
Bro, because things are supposed to have, like, pretty well-established explanations in medicine up until the modern era. Like, people have treated the doctors over time, the healers have used the same medicine from the earth and whatnot to treat people forever. How is cancer becoming more prevalent than ever in the age of medicine that's progressing, unless it's being caused or an offshoot by the medical industry? How do these things, autism, all these things keep jumping exponentially? They should be going down, obviously, right? If we're advancing in medicine.
Yep, exactly.
Some years later, as AIDS ultimately developed, I think AIDS was at least one example of what he was talking about.
Yeah,
I now think that AIDS probably is a manufactured disease. Cancer. He said we can cure almost every cancer right now.
Okay, let's do a quick reset. Okay, so some people in the chat are asking who this guy is. So this is a doctor. Maybe Nick, go ahead. You give the overview.
His name's Dr. Dunegan, Dunegan. He is a doctor that graduated from the University of Pittsburgh Medical School, which is one of the most prestigious in the country. Then went on to work in Pittsburgh. He was like a protege of a really high-ranking doctor that was teaching at the University of Pittsburgh and was the head of Planned Parenthood, I believe, or one of the tops at Planned Parenthood in 1969 when he heard these words being spoke to him in a lecture by this guy, who told him not to take notes, don't record it, even though you're in a school lecture hall right now. I don't want this leaving this room. And I mean, we're just going over because it's crazy right now from our perspective to see how all of this has come to fruition like 50 years later.
All right, let's get back.
Information is on file in the Rockefeller Institute.
Oh, and he's basically detailing all the things he heard that seemed bizarre and crazy in 1969 that have subsequently come to pass in the changing society. So he talked about children giving access to sexual education, increasing sexual activity when young people, sexualizing the clothing,
limiting the amount of kids families have,
limiting and changing the family structure. So yeah, lots of.
And this is 20 years after the fact. He's saying this like 20 years after, because the guy finally died that he heard it from, and he didn't want to come out about it until he was dead and gone.
Oh, Chucky says, unless ye be Meghan Markle. No, I'm not Meghan Markle. I'm not over here trying to like take down the monarchy.
No, we're not with the World Economic Forum or the son of or daughter of Hitler.
I'm not
or
a crazy feminist who like totally buck broke her like husband.
Buck broke, yeah.
Yeah, if it's ever decided that it should be released. But consider, if people stop dying of cancer, how rapidly we would become overpopulated. You may as well die of cancer as something else. Efforts at cancer treatment would be geared more toward comfort than toward cure. There was some statement that ultimately the cancer cures which were being hidden in the Rockefeller Institute would come to light because independent researchers might bring them out despite these efforts to suppress them. But at least for the time being, letting people die of cancer was a good thing to do because it would slow down the problem of overpopulation.
Oh, Philosophist says over the Rumble chat, because I can't pull up that feed, but he says Rockefeller knew they could cure cancer almost 100 years ago.
That's a fact. That's why he established the American Cancer Society to be disinformation. That's actually like legit. That's when he established the American Cancer Society to delegitimize cancer cures. You see, here's what he's getting at is so true. The medicine industry, the medical industry in America is a business first and foremost, meaning if you cure a patient, you lose a customer and you go out of business. So we can't cure them, guys, or we go out of business. So what do? We have to treat them perpetually.
Make them
We have to come up with stuff they need more for.
Make them comfortable.
Make them want to come. They need to come back is the point. We need recurring customers, guys, or we'll go out of business. So we have to treat them. We can't cure them. Keep treating.
A very interesting thing was heart attacks.
Oh, heart attacks.
He said, there is now a way to simulate a real heart attack. It can be used as a means of assassination. Only a very skilled pathologist who knew exactly what to look for at an autopsy could distinguish this from the real thing. I thought that was a very surprising and shocking thing to hear from this particular man at that particular time. This and Business of the Cancer Cure really still stand out sharply in my memory because they were so shocking and at that time seemed to me out of character. He then went on to talk about nutrition and exercise, sort of in the same framework. People would have to eat right and exercise right to live as long as before. Most won't.
Right about that.
This in the connection of nutrition.
Most won't.
There was no.
This one's really, really, really disturbing. You remember about the jogging and the exercise and the whole, like, you have to work out and you have to do all this extra effort to not become a disgusting. Yeah. This one is really interesting. Just how, like, they're so focused on the fine-tuned details of every single thing they do. Now listen to what they're saying, how meticulous they are, down to like the clothing, the behaviors, why they wear these shoes, changing society to make certain clothes. Like, it's a lot.
Making grandmas and grandpas get lost on like weird, confusing freeways more often, so to the point they don't want to drive and be like free and independent.
Yeah.
I remember him saying.
So, sort of in the same framework, people would have to eat right and exercise right to live as long as before. Most won't. This in the connection of nutrition, there was no specific statement that I can recall as to particular nutrients that would be either inadequate or in excess. In retrospect, I tend to think he meant high salt diets and high fat diets would predispose toward high blood pressure and premature arteriosclerotic heart disease, and that if people were too dumb or too lazy to exercise as they should, then their circulating fats would go up and predispose to disease. And he said something about diet information, about proper diet would be widely available, but most people, particularly stupid people who had no right to continue living anyway, they would ignore the advice and just go on and eat what was convenient and tasted good. There were some other unpleasant things said about food. I just can't recall what they were, but I do remember of having reflections about wanting to plant a garden in the backyard to get around whatever these contaminated foods would be.
Oh, those are the contamination.
I regret I don't remember the details, the rest of this about nutrition and hazardous nutrition. With regard to exercise, he went on to say that more people would be exercising more, especially running, because everybody can run. You don't need any special equipment or place. You can run wherever you are. As he put it, people will be running all over the place. And in this vein, he pointed out how supply produces demand, and this was in reference to athletic clothing and equipment, as this would be made more widely available and glamorized, particularly as regards running shoes. This would stimulate people to develop an interest in running, and as part of a whole sort of public propaganda campaign, people would be encouraged then to buy the attractive sports equipment and to get into exercise. Again, well, in connection with nutrition, he also mentioned that public eating places would rapidly increase, that this had a connection with the family too. As more and more people ate out, eating at home would become less important. People would be less dependent on their kitchens at home. And then this also connected to convenience foods being made widely available. Things like you could pop into the microwave.
Microwave man dinner, all that stuff.
Well. I mean, more. It all plays into itself. Like, it all feeds into itself. It's like this giant network. Like, philosophy says, people should never underestimate how diabolical and observant people can be. That's all it is. They just observe. They figure out all of the little pieces they have to change and move around. Because once they introduced processed foods, what happened? People became more obese.
Yeah,
they're doing all this running around, but they're getting fatter.
Getting fatter somehow. Dude, imagine having no empathy, okay? What your day-to-day would look like. You would see other people like deeply reactive to other people's emotions, and you would realize, like, okay, I gotta manipulate and play those, but I don't feel them at all. I don't feel empathy for anybody. I don't feel anybody else's emotions. Fuck them. But I see that they're all compelled by it a lot. So, and then from there, you could just you have all day to sit around plotting and planning against them.
Exactly. You have a lot of time.
Whole meals would be available.
Keep me updated on that Rumble chat. It's frozen for me for some reason.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, we've now seen this in some pretty good ones. But this whole different approach to eating out and to previously prepared meals being eaten in the home was predicted at the time to be brought about convenience foods. And the convenience foods, though, would be part of the hazard. Anybody who was lazy enough to want the convenience foods rather than fixing his own also better be energetic enough to exercise, because if he was too lazy to exercise and too lazy to fix his own food, then he didn't deserve to live very long. This was all presented as sort of a moral judgment of foods being made widely available. Things like you could pop into the microwave whole meals. Enough to want the convenience foods rather than fixing his own, also better be energetic enough to exercise, because if he was too lazy to exercise and too lazy to fix his own food, then he didn't deserve to live very long. This was all presented.
Talk about empathy. Talk about
I know, right?
justification.
Yeah. What time?
No, he just didn't deserve to live that long. It's creepy. It's so creepy.
And it is sort of a moral judgment about people and what they should do with their energies. People who are smart, who would learn about nutrition, and who are disciplined enough to eat right and exercise right are better people and are the kind you want to live longer. Somewhere along in here there was also something about accelerating the onset of puberty. And this was said in connection with health, and later in connection with education, and connected to accelerating the process of evolutionary change. There was a statement that we think we can push evolution faster and in the direction we want it to go. I remember this only as a general statement. I don't recall if any details were given beyond that. Another area of discussion was religion. This is an avowed atheist speaking. And he said, religion is not necessarily bad. A lot of people seem to need religion with its mysteries and rituals, so they will have religion. But the major religions of today have to be changed because they are not compatible with the changes to come.
What?
Gotta have the new world religion, one world religion.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Gotta get rid of Christianity, Islam, and Judaism to do it.
And just build a big mega facility.
We all have a lot in common. Let's just focus on what we have in common and not our differences. You've all been good followers of your prophet or Lord or whatever. Now it's time that we come together under one world government religion.
Mm-hmm. The Fat Dove Soap spokesperson says this is fake news.
All the more reason to believe it ain't.
Yeah.
All religions will have to go, especially Christianity. Once the Roman Catholic Church is brought down, the rest of Christianity will follow.
That's so true, because the Marxists infiltrated the Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they talk about it a lot. Like, it's well documented. I forgot who it was, but it's well documented. So, just a quick reset. We're listening to The Lost Tapes.
Dr. Dunnigan.
Dr. Dunnigan. Illuminati Lost Tapes. Dr. Dunnigan. Go ahead.
Just learning about the plot to take over the world. It seems to have been waged for quite some time now. This is from 1969. Well, this is 89. He's recalling a lecture from 69 that he got from a medical doctor at the University of Pittsburgh.
Easily. Then a new religion can be accepted for use all over the world.
Yeah.
It will incorporate something from all of the old ones to make it more easy for people to accept it and feel at home in it. Most people won't be too concerned with religion. They will realize that they don't need it. In order to do this, the Bible will be changed. It will be rewritten to fit the new religion. Gradually. Key words will be replaced with new words having various shades of meaning. Then the meaning attached to the new word can be close to the old word, and as time goes on, other shades of meaning of that word can be emphasized, and then gradually that word replaced with another word. I don't know if I'm making that clear, but the idea is that everything in Scripture need not be rewritten, just key words replaced by other words, and the variability in meaning attached to any word can be used as a tool to change the entire meaning of Scripture and therefore make it acceptable to this new religion. Most people won't know the difference, and this is another one of the times where he said the few who do notice the difference won't be enough to matter. Then followed one of the most surprising statements of the whole presentation. He said, some of you probably think the churches won't stand for this. And he went on to say, the churches will help us. There was no elaboration on this.
That's funny because they did like totally restructure this church is like totally compromised. I mean, did you see that one church that was like decked out in like the flag of Israel and everything, and they were like doing a whole it's crazy. Like the churches, I mean, what did they say when it came to C-19? They didn't care. What did they say about a lot of things? They don't care. They're just like, whatever.
It's amazing the unabated support for Israel by new Christians. To me, just from the outside, I'm fascinated by that because the Christians are kind of suckers being taken for a ride as far as they can by the Jews, I think. Like when I listen to my like Jewish people that I know talk candidly, they look at you guys as like lesser. You're Goyim, you're Gentiles, so you're not them. So we're all like on the outside looking in, and they're using you to the fullest, and you're wrapping yourself in their flags, and they're laughing all the way to the bank, literally. But the change in the words thing is so insidious because that's happened many times with all the translations. If you look at the what's it called, Strong's Concordance and whatnot, which helps you line up like what words mean in the Bible from different translations, they all slightly change, and sometimes it can be somewhat dramatic. But it's a word, one word. It'll be like one word substituted that's different. And it could be passable that it kind of might have but it actually puts a totally different spin on the thing. And so if they're doing this over time, slowly and surely throughout decades, or even centuries, who knows? Like, I mean, at this point, it explains why no two Christians can agree on the Bible. Even though if it was written by the loving Almighty God, like it should be pretty clear and easy to, I don't know, it's just fascinating to me.
I know how and this is all tracks really well with this whole agenda because they need to take everything, again, like I said earlier, they're trying to go from the inside out and the outside in. So they're looking at changing the environment, and they're also going to change you from the inside to do all of these things. That's what social engineering does.
Yeah, until you're transhuman.
They don't have to force you. They just create all the conditions necessary for you to just do all the things that they programmed you to do. That's why countering and reversing the MK Ultras, reversing the brainwashing is like so critical. Like that has to be above all else, you know. Even and I was thinking about this today, even what you personally, if you get outraged about things, you have to make sure your prime directive is to reverse the brainwashing. You know what I mean? So you don't build animosity with somebody, you don't build division, you don't help move forward the dialectic, the, binary back and forth of destroying society. Because now we're seeing that now with the right being woke, super woke. They're crazy
overnight.
They're crazy woke. They're crazy woke. They're like, they want to ban free speech. They want to get rid of everybody. Everybody's like, anti this and anti that.
And the liberals seem like rational and sane compared to that.
I know. And they're switching it up.
It's the great party switch of 2023 for real. Like, you know how that they always say there was a party switch, the Republicans became the Democrats? That never really happened. Well, this one's really happening. It's just happened in front of our eyes.
Exactly. And it took like a handful of days.
Yeah, quick.
Clear just what he had in mind when he said the churches will help us. In retrospect, I think some of us now can understand what he might have meant at that time. I recall then only of thinking, no, they won't, and remembering
No,
our
they
Lord's
won't.
words where he said to Peter, "Thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it." So, yes, some people in the churches might help, and in the subsequent 20 years we've seen how some people in churches have helped. But we also know that our Lord's words will stand, and the gates of hell will not prevail. Another area of discussion was education, and one of the things in connection with education that I remember connecting with what he said about religion was, in addition to changing the Bible, he said that classics in literature would be changed. I seem to recall Mark Twain's writings was given as one example. But he said the casual reader reading a revised version of a classic would never even suspect there was any change, and somebody would have to go through word by word to even recognize that any change was made in these classics. The changes would be so subtle, but the changes would be such as to promote the acceptability of the new system. As regards
So that's creepy. You know, like I always think of like the Mandela effect.
Yeah.
And the subtle changes that took place over time,
Yeah.
people remembering different things. But just overall, like people think that that's difficult to do.
Right.
It's not that difficult. People don't read anyway. Like you can go in and change any book you want. People don't remember stuff. People don't really care.
Dude, I try to tell people to read all the time. People are like, "Where are you getting that?" Or they're questioning like what I'm telling them. I'm like, dude, I've tried to tell you now a million times. It's right here in this document. Just go read it. And they can't be bothered to read anything. And I think the elitists, they know that. They're playing with that on their side now.
Yeah.
And they're just getting bold. They're putting out their agendas like right in writing because they know nobody's going to read this. These idiots will not open this book.
They know that you're lazy. They just said it. He just said it. They know you're lazy. You're not going to cook your own food, and you're not going to have energy. You're not going to have energy to go work out. You're just going to be lazy.
Let's give them Netflix and chill to come home after their slave labor job that they have no hope, in overcoming.
Exactly.
Education, he indicated that kids would spend more time in schools, but in many schools they wouldn't learn anything. They'll learn some things, but not as much as formerly.
That was my
better schools in better areas with better people, their kids will learn more. In the better schools, learning would be accelerated. And this was another time where he said, we think we can push evolution. By pushing kids to learn more, he seemed to be suggesting that their brains would evolve and that their offspring then would evolve, sort of pushing evolution in where kids would learn and be more intelligent at a younger age, as if this pushing would alter their physiology. Overall, schooling would be prolonged. This meant prolonged throughout the school year. I'm not sure what he said about a long school day. I do remember he said that school was planned to go all summer, that the summer school vacation would become a thing of the past, not only for schools but for other reasons. People would begin to think of vacation times year-round, not just in the summer.
Okay.
For most people, it would take longer to complete their education. To get what originally had been in a bachelor's program would now require advanced degrees and more schooling.
Oh, that didn't happen. That never happened.
That is such a fucking mic drop. In fact, you're made out to be like a lesser nowadays if you don't have some sort of college degree.
You need
it's
to have
fascinating.
a master's to go work like a $37, like $30,000 job now. It's like insane.
You know what? I think it's going to swing the other way. If hirers are smart, for me, I actually look at it as not necessarily a benefit, and it could be a detriment if you have a degree.
I know, seriously. It's just like, it's not worth the debt. David's in here like an old grandpa. Kiddos, gather around the hearth in my rocking chair. Let me tell you about Kami seizing the means of production. Oh, thanks, David. Yeah, this dude is based. I mean, he's just like, can you imagine? He just spent the last 20 years being like, is this it? Is this it? Like,
Seeing it all come about in front of his eyes. Like, and he has a kid that he's like, when I took him to the movies and I saw all this blood and gore, like, I could tell the agenda came about, and I don't want my kid growing up into this. So that's why he changed the heart, I guess.
yeah.
A lot of school time would be just wasted time.
Just a waste of time, yeah.
Good schools would become more competitive. I inferred when he said that he was including all schools, elementary up through college, but I don't recall whether he said that. Students would have to decide at a younger age what they would want to study and get onto their track early if they would qualify. It would be harder to change to another field of study once you got started. Studies would be concentrated in much greater depth, but narrowed. You wouldn't have access to material in other fields outside your own area of study without approval.
How specific is he getting? Like, that's specific.
That's compartmentalization is literally what we have nowadays. Why it's in such a mess. They can get away with so much because if this group that we need to do this part of the plan only knows about this part of the plan, and this only knows about this part, and we keep them from ever like talking to each other or anything like that, they'll never be the wiser that we have this grand scheme.
Mm-hmm. And what did the Katanji say? She's like, when she was asked like what a woman is, she couldn't even say.
Oh yeah.
She couldn't say. She was like, I'm not a biologist. You can be a lawyer, but you can't understand basic biology. Like,
you're the head of the what service? What was she supposed to be? The justice.
She's Justice Department. Like, she's in the not the Justice Department. She's the Attorney General. I'm just kidding. She's
a raging bitch.
I know, right? No, she's a judge, Supreme Court. Yeah, this is crazy.
This seemed to be more where he talked about limited access to other fields. I seem to recall that as being more at the college level, high school and college level, perhaps. People would be very specialized in their own area of expertise, but they won't be able to get a broad education and won't be able to understand what is going on overall.
Yeah.
He was already talking about computers in education, and at that time he said anybody who wanted computer access or access to books that were not directly related to their field of study would have to have a very good reason for so doing. Otherwise, access would be denied. Another angle was that the schools would become more important in people's overall life. Kids, in addition to their academics, would have to get into school activities unless they wanted to feel completely out of it. But spontaneous activities among kids, the thing that came to my mind when I heard this was Sandlot football and Sandlot baseball teams that we
Layla, do you still see
worked
kids
up
playing out and
as
about?
kids.
What?
Like, I realized throughout COVID and still to now, I can't remember. I don't ever see kids out just in a group playing anymore, unorganized.
Yeah.
Like on the basketball courts or anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
When's the last time? Do you see that often? Kids just getting together spontaneously?
Sometimes I see kids walking around, but not very often. I saw it when I was in Chicago, kids walking around, but that's because,
Like,
they're
looking for trouble, maybe?
Really, it's not really common at all. No.
Like basketball games, pick up sports. You see that ever?
No, they're not at the park, so they can't get kidnapped. Come on.
Right.
Let's be real.
Growing up, I said to kids wanting any activities outside of school would be almost forced to get them through the school. There would be few opportunities
kids are on
outside.
TikTok. Yeah, they are.
Now the pressures of the accelerated academic program and accelerated demands where kids would feel they had to be part of something, one or another athletic club or some school activity. These pressures he recognized would cause some students to burn out. He said the smartest ones will learn how to cope with the pressures and to survive. There will be some help available to students in handling stress, but the unfit won't be able to make it. They will then move on to other things. In this connection, and later on in the connection with drug abuse and alcohol abuse, indicated that psychiatric services to help would be increased dramatically. In all the pushing for achievement, it was recognized that many people would need help, and the people worth keeping around would be able to accept and benefit from that help and still be super achievers. Those who could not would fall by the wayside and therefore were sort of dispensable, expendable, I guess is the word I want. Education would be lifelong. Adults would be going to school. There will always be new information that adults must have to keep up. When you can't keep up anymore, you're too old. This was another way of letting older people know that the time had come for them to move on and take the demise pill. If you got too tired to keep up with your education, you got too old to learn new information, then this was a signal you begin to prepare to get ready to step aside.
I saw that happen to my grandma.
In addition to revising the classics, which I...
Yeah.
Yeah, like, she would always say things like, "No, honey, I'm not smart." And she was an orphan and stuff, but she was very smart. She didn't give herself enough credit. But how fast the world was progressing, she was 92 when she passed recently, but she just was lost, you know? And most people, like my mom, my aunts and uncles, like, they just didn't bother her with it, like, out of love, but because she couldn't keep up, you know, with technology or whatever it is. It's like, she's not going to understand it. Let's not, like, stress her out. But yeah, you just get lost, you get left behind. The world's passed you by.
Yeah, it's so unfortunate. It really is.
Alluded to a while ago with revising the Bible. He said some books would just disappear from libraries. This was in the vein that some books contain information or contain ideas that should not be kept around, and therefore those books would disappear. I don't remember exactly if he said how this was to be accomplished, but I seem to recall carrying away the idea that this would include thefts, that certain people would be designated to go to certain libraries and pick up certain books and just get rid of them. Not necessarily as a matter of policy, just simply
replace them
steal
with
it.
porn books for little kids.
I know, and replace them with corn books for kids. Yeah, I know.
Oh,
That's
my bad.
yeah.
Further down the line, not everybody will be allowed to own books, and some books nobody will be allowed to own. Another area of discussion was...
Oh, yeah. That's why I get the hard copies, okay? We get the physical book to physically read it.
I love it.
Because Kindle licenses and all those ebooks, they can revoke that at any time they want.
Facts. Not to mention, it's better for your eyes that way, too. You're getting a lot of hearts in the chat. I think people are appreciating that. But hey, Layla, again, back to the point earlier where they don't have to like put the population limits in. They just did a good job, so people do it voluntarily. Same thing with reading. They don't have to fucking ban the books if the people won't read them.
Yeah, they just engineered the people to not do it. Like all the information, like that's why when I hear people talking and they're just like, oh, we have to make laws to stop people from doing this and this and this. It's like people have the entire internet in the palm of their hands, like 90% of the day. Do you think they look up what fluoride is? You think they look up the health effects of a high carb, low fat diet? No. Like, nobody cares. They're not doing
Too busy eating that high carb, low fat diet or whatever you said.
high carb, low fat. That's how I like
too much of that to be studying it.
Yeah, I want diabetes 4. I'm going to skip
laws that would be changed. At that time, a lot of states had blue laws about Sunday sales and certain Sunday activities. They said the blue laws would all be repealed. Gambling laws would be repealed or relaxed so that gambling would be increased. Indicated then that governments would get into gambling. We've had a lot of state lotteries pop up around the country since then. And at the time, we were already being told that would be the case. Why should all that gambling money be kept in private hands when the state could benefit from it, was the rationale behind it. But people should be able to gamble if they want to. so it would become a civil activity rather than a private or illegal activity. Bankruptcy laws would be changed. I don't remember the details, but just that they would be. But within members of a club, there would be nobody outside the club who would be able to compete. Sort of like teams competing within a professional sports league. If you're in the NFL or the American or National Baseball leagues, you compete within the league, but the league is all in agreement on what the rules of competition are. Not a really free competition. Drug use would be increased, alcohol abuse would be increased, and law enforcement efforts against drugs would be increased. On first hearing that, it sounded like a contradiction. Why increase drug abuse and simultaneously increase law enforcement against drug abuse? But the idea is that, in part, the increased availability of drugs would provide a sort of law of the jungle, whereby the weak and the unfit would be selected out. There was a statement made at that time, before the earth was overpopulated, there was a law of the jungle where only the fittest survived. You had to be able to protect yourself against the elements and wild animals and disease, and if you were fit, you survived. But now that we've become so civilized, we're over-civilized, and the unfit are able to survive only at the expense of those who are more fit. And the abuse of drugs then would restore, in a certain sense, the law of the jungle and selection of the fittest for survival. News about drug abuse and law enforcement efforts would tend to keep drugs in the public consciousness, and would also tend to reduce this unwarranted American complacency that the world is a safe place and a nice place. The same thing would happen with alcohol. Alcohol abuse would be both promoted and demoted at the same time. The vulnerable and the weak would respond to the promotions and therefore use and abuse more alcohol. Drunk driving would become more of a problem, and stricter rules about driving under the influence would be established, so that more and more people would lose their privilege to drive. This also had connection with something we'll get to later about overall restrictions on travel. Not everybody should be free to travel the way they do now in the United States.
Okay. So, this thing is so creepy to listen to. It's literally like, who said that? I think it was, who said that? David. Yeah, David. Come here, kids. Sit around. Let me tell you about the Marxist takeover. Like, it's literally like listening to your grandpa talk about, like, the most insane stuff. But it's so creepy to think. Ooh, and especially because I know if you're new here, you didn't listen to the whole thing yet. In the beginning, he said in order to break down the family, they would increase travel and make it easier to travel. So people had the illusion that, oh, it's not a big deal if I move away from my family. It's cheap to travel. It's cheap to get around. Like, it's not a big deal. And then now he's talking about, and then now we're going to make it difficult to travel. So they're like lulling people in. They're like opening the gate and they just like separate. And then once they're separated, they can like, lock it down. Oh, man.
Amazing.
So creepy. So
Layla, how many people saw this? Like, how many views were on that tape one?
I think they're on Rumble right now.
No. I'm saying like the thing we're listening to on YouTube.
Oh, I don't know how many
not a lot.
This video. Yeah, that's the other thing. This is not really well known. This isn't like circulated. This isn't popular.
At all.
At all. I don't know. How are you feeling? Do you want to get into the second one? Want to start?
Yeah. Let's at least like. You want to start that one off, and then we can, cliffhang it at some point.
Yeah, let's do it.
People don't have a need to travel that way. It's a privilege. Was kind of the high-handed way it was put. Again, much more in the way of psychological services would be made available to help those who got hooked on drugs and alcohol. The idea being that in order to promote this, drug and alcohol abuse to screen out some of the unfit, people who otherwise are pretty good also would be subject to getting hooked. And if they were really worth their salt, they would have enough sense to seek psychological counseling and to benefit from it. So this was presented as sort of a redeeming value on the part of the planners. It was as if he were saying, you think we're bad in promoting these evil things, but look how nice we are. We're also providing a way out. More jails would be needed. Hospitals could serve as jails. Some new hospital construction would be designed so as to make them adaptable to jail-like use.
Bro, we've already seen that in COVID. Like, oh man, that's some heavy stuff.
It is.
All right, let's get into the second tape so that we can look into it, and then we'll have to just resume this for next week, unless Nick is too busy, with all his like
audio connections not working for some reason.
No, his harem of.
Don't be spreading rumors on me now.
I know, right? Okay, let's.
My harem of imaginary women.
This is tape number 2 on the New Order of Barbarians.
Remember, this is like 1988, so give these people some like, let's give them some credit.
Change. Nothing is permanent.
69.
I know, he's recalling this from 1969. It's crazy.
This is tape number 2 on the New Order of Barbarians.
Not going to see this
Change.
anywhere else.
Nothing is permanent. Streets would be rerouted, renamed. Areas you had not seen in a while then would become unfamiliar. Among other things, this would contribute to older people feeling that it was time to move on. People would feel they couldn't even keep up now with the changes in areas that were once familiar.
About old people.
Vacant buildings would be left to stand empty and to deteriorate, and streets would be allowed to deteriorate in certain localities. The purpose of this was to provide the jungle a depressed atmosphere for the unfit.
Oh, man.
That's why there's always a
somewhere in the same connection he mentioned buildings and bridges would be made so that they would collapse after a while.
Oh,
there would be more accidents
happened in Pittsburgh recently
involving airplanes and railroads and automobiles. All of this to contribute to the feeling of insecurity, that nothing was safe. Not too long after this presentation, and I think one or two even before, in the area where I live, we had some newly constructed bridge to break, another newly constructed bridge defect discovered before it broke, and I remember reading just scattered incidents around the country where shopping malls would fall in right where they were filled with shoppers. And I remember that one of the shopping malls in our area, first building I'd ever been in where you could feel this vibration throughout the entire building. There were a lot of people in there.
I can tell you inside stories about this part. That's crazy.
And I remember wondering at that time whether this shopping mall was one of the buildings he was talking about. Talking to construction people and architects about it, they'd say, "Oh no, that's good. Building vibrate like that. That means it's flexible and not rigid." Well, maybe so. We'll wait and see. Other areas, though, would be well maintained. Not every part of the city would be slummed. There would be the created slums and other areas well maintained. Those people able to leave the slum for better areas then would learn to better appreciate the importance of human accomplishment. This meant that if they left the jungle and came to civilization, so to speak, they could be proud of their own accomplishments, that they made it.
You know what's funny, too? My dad would always call the ghetto the jungle. He would always call it the jungle. That's like literally what he called it.
There was no related sympathy for those who were left behind in the jungle of drugs. And
that's so true. There's no sympathy. If you look at the black neighborhood, nobody cares. They don't care. The ghettos, people don't care. You're just like
ghetto. At an early age, nobody gives a shit about us.
No.
deteriorating neighborhoods. And then a statement that was kind of surprising: we think we can effectively limit crime to the slum areas so it won't be spread heavily into better areas. I should maybe point out here, these are obviously not word-for-word quotations after 20 years, but where I say that I'm quoting, I'm giving the general drift of what was said close to word for word, perhaps not precisely so. But anyhow, I remember wondering, how can you be so confident that the criminal element is going to stay where you want it to stay? But he went on to say there would be increased security would be needed in the better areas. That would mean more police, better coordinated police efforts. He did not say so, but I wondered at that time about the moves that were afoot to consolidate all the police departments of suburbs around major cities. I think the John Birch Society was one who was saying, support your local police, don't let them be consolidated. And I remember wondering if that was one of the things he had in mind about security. It was not explicitly stated. But anyhow, he went on to say there would be a whole new industry of residential security systems to develop with alarms and locks and
oh my god
alarms.
Oh my god, like, I know this seems trivial and I know this is like, oh duh, we have that, but they did not have that back then. They didn't have Brinks, they didn't have all these security, they didn't have the cameras. You didn't have cameras everywhere. You didn't have the private security going around, the private, they didn't have that like that. They didn't have the technology, but they didn't have all of these things set up. So he's explaining to him that these are going to be the actions and then the reactions, and it's going to keep going forward until they destroy society. And that's
it's crazy to realize, dude. It's like it's really crazy to realize. Like, I've said it before on here, but I have like a regrettable like history of being like a hoodlum, and the wealthy areas, you don't go fuck around over there. If you're gonna do some dirt or whatever, you don't go there. You know they got cameras. You know the cops are gonna respond instantly. Like, they're gonna take them seriously. They have money. They can sue you. So you just don't mess around. You don't even go to those areas. You don't even consider it. Interesting.
Yeah.
That's why.
Going into the police department so that people could protect their wealth and their well-being. Because some of the criminal activity would spill out of the slums into better, more affluent-looking areas that looked like they'd be worth burglarizing. But, and again, it was stated like as a redeeming quality. See, we're generating all this more crime, but look how good we are. We're also generating the means for you to protect yourself against.
See, it's so disturbing how humans at every level, even like satanic psychopaths, need to justify things. Whenever you see the justification, whenever you see something happening, look for the justification. The justification is going to be either a phrase or, a mantra that everybody has. Like, everybody says the same thing. They say it all of a sudden all the time. Like, the same exact thing.
Save one life.
Yeah. Be kind. Like, the stay home. Like, this is all social engineering. This is all propaganda. They're all just manipulating us. Like, it's not easy. It's not difficult to spot the propaganda. It's not difficult to spot the problem, reaction, solution.
I was just about to bring that up. Hegelian dialectic, problem, reaction, solution. That's exactly what this is. It's the age-old: create a problem and then offer a solution for the reaction that the public has that you wanted to bring about all along. Oh, we'll fix this problem because we want to bring this about all along. Don't tell them that, but that'll be the reaction solution to that reaction. And then we got our problem solved.
Yeah, and then it's just like why are we doing this? Like, why do I have to participate in this like false dilemma? I mean, we're seeing that right now in real life. Like, it's all, you have to do this, you have to do that. Actually, I don't have to do any of these things. I don't have to pick a side.
Well, that's another part of the Hegelian dialectic. Thesis plus antithesis equals synthesis. You take something and its opposite, crash them together, and they synthesize. And, whether it's Israel and Hamas, black people and white people, men and women, Republicans, Democrats, Christians, trans, whatever. You just take two seemingly opposite things, smash them together, and let it synthesize, see what happens.
Exactly. It's it's scary. It's terrifying.
Against the crime. Sort of repeated thing throughout this presentation was the recognized evil, and then the self-forgiveness, saying, well, see, we've given you a way out. American
Oh, man. Oh, my God. This is so good. I'm sorry. It's just, we're seeing this happen right now. Oh, somebody attacked some kid and, like, bombed their house, and, oh, well, we didn't do it. We're not evil. It's like this nonstop justification. People need an out. That's why it's like, if you want to manipulate someone, just give them an out, and they'll take it. They'll definitely take it.
History came under discussion. It was the first that I'd heard of the term global interdependence, or that notion.
Right.
The stated plan was that different parts of the world would be assigned different roles of industry and commerce in a unified global system.
Wow,
The continued preeminence of the United States and the relative independence and self-sufficiency of the United States would have to be changed.
Wait, why is this doctor talking about like the global industry? What's going on?
It couldn't be a globalist agenda, could it?
It's not like it's planned out. Like, but it's feminism.
You're a conspiracy theorist, Layla. I'm convinced you're a conspiracy theorist. Yes, it's a feminist conspiracy.
Feminism moved the factories to China, not this dude. I constantly tell people, like, blaming the symptoms, like the last visible thing of the overarching disease, which is the globalist agenda, is not going to fix the problem. Like,
if they only had a clue, when you're thinking like that, you're too microcosm. You're not seeing it macro enough. Like the big plot, the big picture, long game. Feminism's just a means to an end.
Yeah, just like all of them. And it's bad, but it's like, dude, they're planning to move all the industry anyway. They don't care about chicks. Like, they don't care.
No. They'll soon not have to have chicks or dudes if they can have this procreation, this reproduction without people, with technology. They're real close to that. They might have even already be over the edge for all we know.
It's the feminists. But it's the feminists. They're coming.
Well, one of these days, you're going to be dying and begging for feminism, people, when it gets off the extreme end where it's just robots. You don't even get no ass. No pussy. It's robot pussy.
You're going to be dreaming of those midriffs with the underarm hair.
My robot ass pussy brings all the boys to the yard. Rap.
No, I was talking about this the other day. I was talking about how when they do build the AI robots, you know, the pleasure dolls, there'll be just like tons of Reddit boards with guys being like, my pleasure doll, like she got angry at me, like, and they'll have these whole like elaborate like incel scenarios, like.
They can't even program their robots to be acceptable for them because they're so pathetic.
I know, and then the robot still tells them to like shut the fuck up.
Yeah, can't help but be a bitch. Oh, you're always crying like a bitch. Will you be the man for once?
I know. Why did you get the promotion? Oh my god, they're gonna like build it. Yeah, I know. It will like the robots won't be that successful, and they won't be selling, and like they won't be working right, and so they'll have to like program that in so the robots like nag, so the guys will like
an acceptable amount of nagging.
Yeah, so the guys will have something to complain about and like write on their.
Yeah. They'll go to the bar and like be like, man, my robot girl's been driving me nuts.
I know.
Boy, tell me about it. My old robot lady is.
That would be so funny. Oh my god.
You're right. That's like right around the corner. Another thing, you heard it here first.
I know.
These AIs and these robots are going to put a lot of people out of business. Obviously, you didn't hear that here first. But what you did hear first is the OnlyFans girls are going to be one of the first to get replaced. Totally wiped out. What simulations are there? You heard
I
it here
know,
first.
because you don't need a person. You just need a bot.
Bro, you don't need anything. You can literally simulate them on the screen, and they'll be customizable to every end user male's fucking exact dream girl in every way you can imagine, including personality and whatnot. And they're not going to be bitchy and uncooperative or do the job bad or anything else that women often can do. It's just like no brainer. It's going to be replaced. They're all going to be replaced quick. Like, it's going to happen like overnight at some point, and they're all going to be like, whoa.
That's true. That's true, because look what happened with ChatGPT.
You heard it here first, man. It's like we're on the precipice of that. Any day now that could happen to those girls.
I know. That's why it's not a long-term solution. AI is definitely cheaper.
AI is cheaper, you said? Somebody said AI titties. I don't know if I can get into it, man. I don't know if I can get into that.
Oh, the first non-parent babies are going to be straight up soulless monsters. Bro, like, I can't even imagine how bad they are now. Can you imagine how bad that thing will be?
No.
Jeez, I
don't want to see that. I'm hoping to reverse it. Dude, we can't see that.
I'm not going down that timeline. I'm not going
down exactly. That timeline. I'm gonna die trying.
I'm gonna opt out of that timeline. No.
Yeah. Right now, we're starting it right now with like-minded people that are watching.
Oh my God, Rumble we got some Rumbles hoes on Suicide Watch.
Damn, I wish I could see the Rumble chat. Nice.
Oh my God, I can't.
Hey baby, why don't you leave your girl for me?
And they're all like underage. All of them.
Dude, watch them all start the program. Yeah, all underage. And me and my friend, we had that just going on. Vaccinated sperm will be the next Bitcoin company. And we were like, our first product is going to be Fagbot, a fag sex bot for gays.
Oh my God.
We'll sell millions.
Oh my God.
Gay people would definitely appreciate that, right? And then it wouldn't be such a danger to normal society, because I understand that they commit certain aggressions, crimes, grape, at a high alarming rate.
They're gonna get banned.
I know. I'm trying to leave it.
There was one of several times where he said, in order to create a new structure, you first have to tear down the old. And American industry was one example of that.
Yeah, it's totally destroyed.
Our system would have to be curtailed in order to give other countries a chance to build their industries, because otherwise they would not be able to compete against the United States. And this was especially true of our heavy industries that would be cut back while the same industries were being developed in other countries, notably Japan. And at this point there was some discussion of steel, and particularly automobiles. I remember saying that automobiles would be imported from Japan on a equal footing with our own domestically produced automobiles, but the Japanese product would be better. Things would be made so they would break and fall apart.
Yeah, this one's sadistic.
That is in the United States. So that people would tend to prefer the imported variety, and this would give a bit of a boost to foreign competitors. One example was Japanese. In 1969, Japanese automobiles, if they were sold here at all, I don't remember, but they certainly weren't very popular.
In 1969, they didn't have Japanese cars.
No. And now they're like they're the industry reliable ones now, like Subaru, Honda, all that shit's Japanese. Wow. The fact that it breaks down, tell me people that doesn't happen often with American products, to the point that you would sooner almost like overlook an American product now, because they're so shoddy.
That's crazy. And he's saying basically they had to like take it down so the other industries could grow. Like they had to slowly like curb it. Like, how much manipulation and control? Like, are we just supposed to believe that was just a random occurrence? Like, just random?
What kind of proves that? No, it proves a couple things, but it proves he's not one of them, and that this agenda was going on unstopped until Trump came along. Again, if you're listening to this kind of thing, I'm not trying to make it political or like a champion for Trump right now or anything, because I don't think they'll ever let him get in again, and I'm probably not. Well, anyways, but he brought energy independence back here. He got the industry pumping and booming again, actually, like at the end of his reign. And then Biden in record time, took it back to business as usual and then some. He's going to go down as the best United States president of all time for New World Order.
He really helped reverse it really quick. Gosh,
But,
people.
But Trump, man, like, he's a nationalist. He's against this kind of agenda. And I can't help but, he has to be aware of this to some extent. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, our country is totally captured. We literally live in Western Israel.
Yeah.
We have every single media. We have every single media outlet going spastic, bombastic, psycho about, you know, what's happening overseas because they're all Israel first. And it's like, they're all like that. It's like, I wonder how many like Christian organizations are just fronts as well. Because I see that is heavy. They're like, Christians, you have to care about this more than you care about yourself. You know, it's like, it's crazy. The psyop is next level.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And you can tell there's always like very big glaring holes in the narrative, if you ask me, when, if you know what you're looking for, when both the right and the left official toters are pushing the same message. So when you got like the Fox Newses and the MSNBCs agreeing on something, then you should really, really be diving into it and wondering why. They tell, exactly. It's like when I told this last week, but it's like when I'm trying to feed my parents' dogs or something, some medicine. I'll put it in with peanut butter or some good shit and just put a little bit of the medicine in there that they wouldn't eat. And then they gulp it right down. They didn't even realize they ate it. And that's what they'll tell a lot of truths or whatever to win people over. And you don't realize like the misdirection that they're running, but it's just a couple little like strategic lies throughout all of that truth that you'll buy hook, line, and sinker because they just fed you a bunch of truth with it and it just went down fine. But there's an official agenda, man. That's propaganda for our government or the people that pull the strings, that control everything. It just is. It's modern propaganda.
But the idea was you would get a little bit disgusted with your Ford, GM, or Chrysler product or whatever because little things like window handles would fall off more and plastic parts would break that, had they been made of metal, would hold up. Your patriotism about buying American would soon give way to practicality that if you bought Japanese or German or imported, that it would last longer and you'd be better off. Patriotism would go down the drain then. There was mention elsewhere of things being made to fall apart too. One of the, I don't remember specific items that, if they were even stated, other than automobiles, but I do recall of having the impression, sort of in my imagination, of a surgeon having something fall apart in his hands in the operating room at a critical time. Was he including this sort of thing in his discussion? But somewhere in this discussion about things being made deliberately defective and unreliable, not only was to tear down patriotism, but to be just a little source of irritation to people who would use such things.
Oh, again, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Brilliant little annoyances.
Brilliant, brilliant. See, that's the thing. Everybody's always looking out for, like, what's the big thing? What's the huge, mega, oh my God, I see it. It's a lot of small things sometimes. You know, it's
that
like
can be plausibly denied. They can be plausibly denied if they're all small
really
enough.
Good point. Really good point. Yeah, the plausible deniability. It's like a bad day. You know, things just keep going bad and keep going bad. How demoralizing is that?
That's what they've been doing to us. And then, like, on top of what he's saying about the products and whatnot being made more shoddy so that they could bring in imports or have them looking elsewhere, at least as far as me as a man, it seems to be they did that to women in general a lot to us. That's why you have things like passport bros and stuff. But at the same time, they certainly did it to men, too, to you guys, by feminizing us and all these things. So, you know, there's nothing for you guys to look forward to here. So, you just become hoes and have fun when you're in your 20s and shit. And, you know.
Yeah.
Low T, yeah.
Okay,
Low T and robot T's. That's going to be the name of this episode.
Oh, my God. I hate you so much. Low T and robot cities.
Yeah.
Only on propaganda culture, guys.
Yeah.
and the idea that you not feel terribly secure, promoting the notion that the world isn't a terribly reliable place. The United States was to be kept strong in information, communications, high technology, education, and agriculture. The United States was seen as continuing to be sort of the keystone of this global system, but heavy industry would be transported out. One of the comments made about heavy industry was we had had enough environmental damage from smokestacks and industrial waste, and some of the other people could put up with that for a while. This, again, was supposed to be a redeeming quality for Americans to accept. You took away our industry, but you saved our environment. So we really didn't lose
Thank you so much.
Here we go.
And along this line, there were talks, there was then discussion about people losing their jobs as a result of industry and opportunities for retraining, and particularly population shifts would be brought about. This is sort of an aside, but I think I'll explore the aside before I forget it more. Population shifts were to be brought about so that...
What?
They're invading us right now, talking about population shifts.
Yep.
People would be tending to move into the Sun Belt. There would be sort of people without roots in their new locations. And traditions are easier to change in a place where there are a lot of transplanted people as compared to trying to change traditions in a place where people grew up and had an extended family where they had roots.
Bruh.
Yeah. This dude, David's like, Jeebus, this dude was accurate AF. I know, I told you guys.
Bruh.
You guys. You're like, who's Grandpa? I'm like, Grandpa's about to spit, like, nothing but bars.
Bar after bar after bar.
Like, it's
yeah,
like,
wait for it.
It's like, what the hell? It's creepy. It's creepy. Like,
it's not often we have our viewers, and you and I, like, kind of stunned, speechless. But that's kind of the vibe I'm feeling right now.
I know, I feel that vibe too. It's like really disturbing. It's like, okay, so they figured it all out and they planned it all out. Like, I'm worried about the fourth tape. While we get to the fourth tape, like.
But here's the best part, Layla. Evil always perpetuates its own demise despite its best laid, most cunning plans. It always does. Dude, that's why this fell right into my lap. And the only reason it did is because I'm from Pittsburgh and they're Pittsburgh doctors, and God put it in my lap. But, like, we have their playbook now. And I'm planning on fucking stopping them.
Yeah. This is
We can, people. We can. Are you going to bend over, take in the butt, and hope they're real gentle on you and don't go for too long?
I know.
That's our options. We either stop them or just hope that New World Order is gentle on us while they have us.
Exactly.
That's our options.
Exactly. But yeah, I think this is a good place to stop because we're hitting 2 hours, but this is like, ooh, we need to like go watch a Hallmark Channel movie or something, you know, like go take a bubble bath and like relax.
Yeah, for real. I might even take a bubble bath after that.
I know. Go get like some popcorn and chill. Like, go play some like video games and, you know, disconnect because like, ooh,
yeah, girl.
They just like read us our life. It's so crazy. It's so crazy. And that's why it's like, it's hard to explain to people that everything is so meticulously thought out and the plausible deniability is built in, and it's not always some big huge event. It's little tiny things adding up, and they plan for all of it. Like, how are they thinking about if we make people lazier or make people not cook their own food and make them like have to eat processed food all the time and stuff like that, they're going to buy more running shoes, and we need to promote running shoes. Like, it's just, you know, people wouldn't think about those things naturally. Like, we wouldn't think about those things.
Right. Yeah, you just hit the nail on the head. They're thinking about these things because they're ancient bloodlines that have preserved themselves through arranged marriages and incest and whatnot since they can trace themselves back to, like, at least the blue bloods of Egypt The kings of Babylon. They're as old as time. The same freaking people.
Yeah.
And they have no hearts. They generationally satanically abuse their kids and stuff. Ritual abuse to like do all sorts of things. They have no hearts, and they've been working towards these schemes since recorded history, it would seem. To the one world tyranny, like it's the age-old plot. It's the same as the Tower of Babel in the Bible, or it's always being worked towards. It's just now they're kind of like on the cusp of maybe being able to pull it off with the fast AI that they have and the technology. They're kind of on the cusp of like thinking, we don't really need these fucking humans anymore, other than like a couple million of them. 500 million, I think he said on the guidestones or something. But they're going to get rid of us, and I don't know, man. If we don't stop them, it's like the frog in water. If you put a frog in boiling water, it jumps right out. But if you put it in room temperature water and slowly bring it to boil, it'll sit in there until you cook it. That's us.
Exactly. That is exactly us. So I think we need to do like more. We need to definitely do this next week if you're free.
I'm in. I'm definitely in. You have
because I want to get to the next one. We're at 10 minutes 41 seconds for this one.
On the record.
So
we're doing it next week.
We'll resume, and this is creeping me out. Like,
well, hey, how about later? Maybe next week we'll plan on doing an hour-long episode or so, watch, and then after that we'll have thought up a good, fun unwind movie that we'll watch on my Discord server as a group.
That's a good idea. Yeah, because this stuff is heavy.
Yeah, we need to decompress after stuff like this.
Yeah. This is on the level of like Portland, like, you know, that Portland video, that Portland clip with the drug addict.
Oh man, that was rough.
That was dark. That was dark. Yeah,
nothing redeeming about it. There's no upside.
This dude is literally spelling out the demise of Western civilization. He's like, and then, So, okay. So, you guys, I hope you subscribe to the YouTube, to the Discord, wherever. You can follow me on X, Propaganda Layla. You can follow Nick. Shout out your handle.
At C3Nick. You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, Discord, pretty much anywhere that way. Yeah. Except Twitter. I think I had to be C3 something or other. Message Layla, maybe she'll send me.
Yeah, no, I'll put it in the description. But yeah, well, next week we're gonna do we're gonna listen to this, finish up listening to tape number 2, and then we'll watch a movie at the Discord C3, the Common Sense Culture.
You're off. You're all off after that.
I know. I'm just like, we'll watch a movie, just rewind, like, you know, not dream of World War III and the demise of civilization.
Sorry, everybody.
All right. Yeah, I'll see you guys. Thanks for joining. And if you're new, this is what we talk about. We talk about propaganda, culture, conspiracy, politics, all of it. And, you know, we break it down. Robot tits, robot titties. Yeah. And we break it down so that, you know, it can be a little bit more digestible. Because, you know, you got to let people know about this stuff, but you can't all be doomsday, you know. You can make some jokes. Yeah.
They're not going to mess up my attitude. That's exactly what they want to do with all this bullshit. They're big P words that can't do anything to anybody's face. So they have to like get real clever behind the scenes because they're losers. They're pathetic losers, and they know it, and we know it. So they have to hide. And they're not going to be a buzzkill to me. In fact, I'm going to enjoy life more in the face of them as I stop them, squash them, destroy them if I have to. If they make us.
Okay. Let me get... I'm like such a Discord newbie. I'm trying to get your Discord link right now. So
here. I can help you with that. Thanks.
Yeah, just drop it in my message. I don't know why
cool.
it's so hard.
Doing it right now.
Such your grandma. I'm like, hey baby, can you give me the Discord
link? Hey, that's usually me. I'm glad I actually know how to do this one thing.
I can't find it.
I got it. I'm sending it to you right now.
Such a lame.
But yeah,
I'm gonna put it in the chat.
Come on there. This is kind of like the kind of thing you could expect in my server, people. Like, if you're easily triggered, highly offendable, overly sensitive, not the place for you. Buyer beware.
Yeah, because in the Discord you can talk about whatever you want, and the Rumble
There's
too.
no-
But we're doing both. But yeah, you should
There's no
just
whole
join
bar.
because it's funny, it's funny, and
If you can handle it, yeah. If you got some nuts or some whatever the opposite of that is for women, you know, yeah,
Oh
come
my
on
God. Invite people. Oh, here we
in. There we
go.
go. Yeah, I just shared it with you.
Okay, cool. I'll use that link. I'll
That should
use
work.
this Discord link so they know who I am. Let me
Nice.
put it in the chat. You
Nice,
guys
nice.
join. I'll put it in the description too. But the rumbles have been legit. I've been loving it.
I
There we
love it
go.
over there on Rumble. They got 19. That's more than double that we have on YouTube. We appreciate wherever's easiest for you guys to watch us.
Yeah,
If it's on YouTube, so be it.
I know we're like inconsistent. In
That's gonna
Discord,
change.
we wear pink. David is hilarious, honestly. David's
Yeah, you're
so
killing it.
funny. Yeah, just pre-join the Discord. Okay, we'll see you guys next week around 7:00. What is it? 10 p.m. your time? Yeah, Eastern time. 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern time, and we'll break down the second tape where Grandpa tells us about our pending doom. It's gonna be fun. All right.
If you can take it.
All right. See you guys.